Welcome to today's episode of My Best Fail. Today we're going to be meeting my friend, Jen Obenchain. Jen has a great story of transformation about how if you change your mindset, you truly can change your life. Jen, I am so excited to share your story with everybody today. I find it so inspiring, as you know, because certain parts of your journey I would reach out and say, Jen, I am so excited for you. And well, I remember talking to you about this when a couple years ago when I wanted to start doing this.
Yeah.
And you were one of the first people that I thought of because I love your story. Well, I remember you were surprised that I was so interested in your story.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that a little bit more because you need to know that you're totally rocking your life. You tend to be very humble about the things that you've accomplished, but as we go through your story, people are going to hear that you changed your mindset and you changed your life. So what I want to do is I want to start the story. We'll go back and we'll start the story where it began for me as I entered your story.
Yeah.
Right. So and we'll delve in a little bit deeper about certain events and what led up to that. But for me, I remember we were working together on the same team.
Yep.
And you and I had, when I had just started working, you and I connected over our fingernails and our fingernail polish. Yeah. And I remember you would walk by my desk and I would always notice that you had like perfect nails and all these cool colors. And it's funny, it is a girly thing. But I remember that's how we connected and how we started talking and finding out more and sharing more about each other's lives, right?
Yeah.
So and we both have fabulous nails today too. Yeah. And then I remember, I think it was in the fall going into the winter because it was really dark.
Yeah.
And you were sitting where your desk was kind of tucked into a corner, and we were both working late, and it was probably, there was only a couple people there. It was mostly just you and I in the back there.
Didn't the overhead lights turn off at some point?
Yeah, we had to put the lights on and stuff. But I remember because I came over and I said, Jen, what are you doing here so late? And you were like, well, what are you doing here so late? And we realized that we were just too tired to drive home.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of settled in back there with you, and we just started talking. And it's where I got to know you. You told me your story. We had got up, we got to get coffee, and we're just getting water and stuff. And you were standing by the kitchen, and you were in the hallway, and we were talking, and you opened up to me about something, because we had been talking about our life and what our plans were and what our goals were. And I know that I remember that you were a little reticent about when we were talking about, what do you want to do? Do you want to, if you get promoted, what is your career thing? What are your hobbies and stuff like that? And you were always you hesitated and just said, oh, it's, work. It's all about work and this is what I do.
Yeah.
And then I remember when we were standing in the hallway and we were walking back, and you said to me, you just kind of opened up to me about something that you felt was really holding you back. And it was almost, you just like revealed something to me. It's like you needed to tell somebody and you were ready. Do you remember that?
Yeah. It's one of those things that, at least at the time, I wasn't telling a lot of people about because it's like, I didn't want to draw even more attention because I thought all eyes were on me. And it was part of the reason why I was stuck and all of that. So it's not like I would just naturally disclose that. I think at that point, in the conversation, I was already feeling comfortable, or maybe I was just ready to like unburden myself. Of it,
I totally agree. Especially how it just all of a sudden it just came out, and we'll talk about that in a second. And I had mentioned to you earlier, I just read a quote that said, "You can't heal from something that you don't reveal." But when you told me about how it affects how you interact with people and you're smiling and everything like that, we'll go into how you move forward past that.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a pivotal moment.
So at that point in time, it had been progressively over the period of like 10, 15 years, my teeth had become progressively worse and worse. Like crooked, crowding, gum issues. I stopped smiling, showing my teeth. If I talked or ate in front of other people, I would cover my mouth. I would photos. I would review photos to make sure, or like selfies and that, to make sure that my teeth weren't showing. Just because that is all I could see when I looked at myself, and just this jacked up girl. You know, I'd had a lot of orthodontia when I was a kid, like really young. And so part of me felt like I screwed it up. I screwed it all up. And I didn't take care of it. You know, growing up in a household where my mother had dental issues, and she was really self-conscious, and she never smiled with her whole mouth, and would, you know, and so I kind of, I think, inherited that a little bit. And it really, in my head, became the reason, or one of the reasons, why I wasn't ever going to be able to move forward. Where, you know, it's like you get to, in my head, this was so real. It's like you get to a certain point in your career, and you become aware, you know, read articles that how important your appearance is to like a professional image. And I'm like, well, I look like this, and I'm not going to progress. You know, it became the reason why no one was ever going to want to date or be in a relationship with me. And it just, I think the way that I felt and saw my overall appearance, and my teeth and my dental situation, where like I had laser-like focus on that of, this is why.
I think that is one of the things that led to the conversation, because I had never seen you smiling so much. When we were sitting there and talking, nobody was around us. And I noticed it, for one, that you were smiling so much. And I remember that you were doing things where you were self-conscious about your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to you, I think that's what happened.
Yeah,
I said to you,
out.
I've never seen you this animated. And I go, it's so nice to see you smiling,
Yeah.
because you're always involved in work and stuff. I go, it's so nice to see you smiling. And I remember we just talked about a little bit about the stories that we tell ourselves are so damaging, especially if it skews the perception or the reality, where, you know, everything that you weren't doing in your life, you started blaming on your teeth.
Yeah. Well, it is so easy to have compassion for other people, but it's like when you to have this story about yourself, and to like treat yourself with the same compassion, that I mean, that's huge. And I just, at that point, I was just on the edge of being in that space where I could like offer myself a little bit more compassion, and like, rather than being in this shame and blame of you know, my teeth are like this because I started smoking, and because I, you know, am like too freaked out now by dentists because they make me feel bad about what I've done to my teeth, and just, you know.
So like you were stuck because of your teeth, but you had all this shame and guilt because you felt like you caused all of this.
Yeah.
You did all your fault.
Yeah.
And I hate that those dentists were telling you that.
Yeah. I mean, now, years in retrospect, and I think I just had a conversation with another friend about this the other night. It's like there are you know, professionals who are kind of in these positions that I think they're well intentioned, but they're you know, there are people who are, you know, for whatever like self-image or mental health perspectives that they have, it's just, you know, they don't know how damaging that message can be when you're already feeling like you're screwing everything up, or you're stuck in a rut, you know, to hear like, well, why'd you let it get so bad? I didn't mean to.
Well, you know, I have the same story with my teeth.
Yeah.
Right. I was supposed to have braces when I was younger. There was a lot of kids in
Yeah.
our family, and I was in ninth grade, and I had a boyfriend, and I refused to get braces. And my mom was like, "Fine, get in line," because she had other kids that she had to do. But
Yeah.
and that was my first mistake because I'm a grinder and my teeth are off.
Yeah.
And every single time I went to the dentist, from even when I started, moved out of the house and I was seeing dentists on my own, every single dentist my entire life said, "Diana, you have to have braces. You're a grinder and you're going to have problems when you get older." But I had healthy teeth, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to wear braces because
Yeah.
I'm totally vainglorious and I did not want to wear braces, right? And I was like, all I could imagine was me like having food stuck in my teeth and spitting and lisping and stuff. And I refused to do it my whole
Yeah.
life. And it finally got to the point where my dentist in my 40s said, "Diana, you have a grinding line on your teeth, and unless you're going to bite into a marshmallow and your teeth are all going to break off." And he's like, "You have hit the point where you cannot ignore this anymore." But I had guilt about it because like I knew that I should have when I was younger do it,
Yeah.
but I didn't associate stuff with it. Like it wasn't as heavy for me as
Yeah.
you had created this heaviness about you.
Yeah.
And you really truly felt like I remember you told me, the way that I look, I'm never going to date, I'm never going to get married. You were nervous about even presenting more at work because you didn't want to be on stage. You didn't want to be the focus of something because you felt like everybody was going to focus on your teeth. And of course, after you told me that, remember, all I did was stare at your teeth when you were
Yeah.
talking, and you were like, "Diana," I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's
like,
just because you drew attention to it, right?
Yeah.
But even then, I was like, "It's not what you think," and
Yeah.
I was sad for you
Yeah.
because you got very open and emotional with me about how this was just a roadblock for you and you were so ready.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that you and I had that conversation at the perfect time. You were
Yeah.
so ready to let it go.
Well, and also it wasn't just about my teeth.
No.
Well,
Well, it never is, right?
It was, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was like also kind of the emotional health state I was in during that phase of my life. But it's easier to sometimes to chalk it up to the reason being something you have control over.
Because you don't have to work at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, and at the time, thinking that everything was so far gone that it was going to be easier to just let it go all to hell rather than to start to work to fix it, because it was like, oh, they can't fix it. They can't fix it. And
But they did.
Yeah.
You're on that journey now.
It's been a long journey, but
Well, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was about 2013, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to me about after that conversation. Walk us forward. We'll go through everything, and there's certain things I want to bring it more to where you are today, because I find it astonishing how you just literally, it's almost like you got out of your desk, you got out of your seat, and you just came alive.
Yeah, it's funny. So I think after that, met with the periodontist, started the process of at least like healing my gums and making sure that my mouth was healthy. And I think around the same time, I started practicing yoga, which was a huge life-changing thing for me in terms of not just the physical aspect, but really kind of meeting people and entering kind of this community of people who were intentionally kind of rewriting those internal stories about themselves. And so that was really huge for me. And I quit smoking for good. I haven't started again.
That's huge.
Yeah, I forget. I forget that I ever smoked.
Wow. And it's been what, 10 years then? About almost 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And then let's see, what else did I do? It's kind of a blur.
Well, can I tell you, I remember when you said I joined a yoga class.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, That's so great. Like I was so shocked by that because you said I don't really even
Well,
move. I come to work, I get in my desk, and I come
Yeah,
back.
before I started yoga, I was very inactive. I just was not a physically healthy person. I wasn't an emotionally healthy person either, but physically I was inactive. I smoked, I was overweight, I had dangerously high blood pressure. And then on top of all of it, just like this deep, deep, deep insecurity about the way that I looked. And not just about the way that I looked, this fear of being seen and people like watching me. And but in this class, my friend asked if I could help her demo how to get into a handstand, or I think it was some sort of an inversion. And I'd never done one before on my own. And I don't think I've done one on my own since. But I think in that moment, I decided to trust her rather than that voice in my head that, oh, I can't do this. The fear of, okay, I'm in this class with these like rail thin, willowy,
Yeah.
yogis, and here I'm going to be the big girl up in an inversion. And
But do you remember what you told me that you thought about her? That was the thing that gave you strength. You said, I trusted her.
yeah,
She saw how I had progressed.
yeah,
She knew what my strengths and weaknesses were. She does not want to embarrass me. She's only
yeah,
here to encourage me.
yeah,
She would never have asked me to come up unless she truly believed I could do it. And you're
yeah.
like, that faith in me was what I said, okay, I'm going to go up there. I'm going to try it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
love
mean,
that.
yeah. It really was because at a certain point, I think that part of this whole journey was maybe the information that I have on myself. Maybe I'm not always the most reliable judge,
Right.
And on one hand, probably shouldn't be that concerned with other
We're
people.
always so harsh with ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah, harsher
yeah.
than we are for other
And
people.
so it was like, I trust this person. This person cares for me. This person wants to help me. She does not want to embarrass me or risk me injuring myself. I'm in a situation where I'm safe, and I'm just going to do it
She
because
believes I can do it. I am going to do it. Yeah.
yeah, because
And
it's
you
like
did.
yeah, and I did. It was amazing. It was so much fun. Yeah, you say that now. I was like, oh, I haven't gone upside down in a while.
And it was amazing. And when you posted the picture, and you just looked like that was second nature for you to be standing on your head like that. And you look great. I was so inspired by that, especially because I knew
Yeah.
from when we had that conversation, and now you were in yoga doing handstands
Yeah.
and you were posting pictures of it. It was
Yeah.
huge.
I mean, because that was another step in that journey.
But it was changing you at work too.
Yeah.
Because you were starting to really kind of come out of kind of hiding.
Yeah.
You were smiling more.
Yeah.
You were engaging more at meetings.
Yeah.
And you weren't always in your desk.
Yeah.
And then after that, not in your desk, not like you were hiding in your desk. But you were
Well,
always just
okay,
sitting.
sometimes I was
Yeah,
no.
yeah. No, you were just kind of hiding back in that corner. And then, so after that, is that when you got the motorcycle?
No, no,
What happened?
no.
Lead
So
us through your
yeah.
different. So these are all achievements. So let's go walk through them.
So yeah. So one of the stories with the teeth. Okay. So you know, okay, my body can't do things. Okay, I got into started practicing yoga, started running, got into a handstand.
Well,
No
wait a
one-
second. So that's another big thing too. I'm
Yeah.
not going to let you off the hook because I know that you always just think, oh, if I could, it's not that hard, and I'm like, well, it was. It was a big shift for you.
Yeah.
I'm still not running, and I was inspired by that. But you didn't just go out and start running. You were running and you started entering races.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, another way to rewrite that story because it's like I was the kid who in like elementary school was slower than everyone else, and so playing tag really sucked. And so getting picked last. So I was just the girl who instead of running and playing at recess, I just sit on the bleachers and read a book. And because
It was
I
safer.
couldn't win
And it was safer.
and it was safer, but I couldn't win. I couldn't compete. And so part of like starting to run was like, well, I learned we measure the wrong things. It's maybe not how fast you get there, it's how long you can do it,
Yeah.
and running was and has been really great for me. I do some really great thinking when I run. I think what it did was it was again like that story of I can't do it, I'm too slow. It doesn't really matter, because when you do a 5K or a 10K, I did a half marathon last summer, and was I in the top quarter? No, I was
But you were doing it.
I was doing it,
Yeah.
and I remember the first 5K I ran, looking at the like where I was in the finish, like after the race, and I was right in the middle. I was perfectly average, and it's
Yeah.
like for that like 10-year-old who would couldn't keep up with anybody. I feel really good about being average. It was pretty
But you know
nice.
what the thing is too? There's a point when people start talking about, oh, what are you doing this weekend? Or what kind of things do you have coming up and stuff? If you're not doing anything besides working and you don't really have any hobbies and all, you go to work and then you come home. You get up, you go to work and come home. And at some point, that narrative even changes, and you hear your story out loud when I say, oh, Jen, what did you do last weekend? Oh, I just ran a 5K.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding?
yeah,
Yeah, just like, and I've been building up and doing this, and I think I'm going to do a half marathon.
yeah,
And that came out of the blue,
yeah,
right? So all of a sudden, that has to be fun to be able to contribute to the conversation and show that you're kind of becoming an athlete. Because
yeah,
if you're doing handstands and yoga and you're running 10Ks and half marathons, in my head, my perception of you is that you're an athlete.
yeah. I actually I told someone over the summer. I First time in my life I self-identified myself. I'm a runner. And
Yeah.
they're like, "Well, what's your pace?" I'm like, "No, no, no. We're not talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm a runner because I run."
Yeah.
And that's really the only bar to entry,
Yeah.
that you have to meet. And it's like, but to
And you obviously love it because you're still doing it.
yeah, I do. I go a little slower, a little shorter distances these days, but
Doesn't matter. You're still doing it. It's
yeah,
awesome.
and
Well, then what happened? What did that lead to? Because it seems like everything that you've branched out is starting to, it leads to something else. And
yeah,
along this journey, you're getting your teeth fixed. You're going through the different stages.
yeah.
And I remember you told me it was like what, a 7 to 8 year. It was going to be like 7 to 8 years.
Yeah, and
That had been the first prognosis.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was, and it's still ongoing, but
Yeah.
but at least I think again with kind of the changes that were taking place, not just like the external, but like kind of rewiring myself. It was like, okay, initially the work to kind of address what was going on with my mouth seemed so overwhelming and so daunting, and that it was never going to be worth the effort. And then, with that internal shift, it became more like, okay, it's a process, just one step at a time. Don't worry about what's at the other end of it. Don't worry about, just start.
Yeah.
Don't have to worry about finishing it. Just start. And I think that was, because that was really, before that shift, that was really where my mindset was at, was like, why even bother starting? I'm already screwed. Might as,
Or it's just not going to get better.
it's
Not
not
going
going
to
to get any better.
And you don't know that until you start doing things.
Yeah.
And it's just like everything sounds so, basic. But the more you do,
Yeah.
and the more things you do, the more people you meet, the more opportunities come your way,
Yeah.
and your world expands.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is exactly what happened to you. Right?
Yeah, and it's funny. So it's like I started, feeling better about like, my mouth and my smile, and I had was feeling better in my body and like about my body. And, my life went from being just like either working or spending my off time on my couch with my cats to actually doing things and having things to talk about. So I'm like, let me try dating. So, and, even that was with like this shift in mindset that I didn't really have before. Before, when I tried to date or date online, it would be like, oh, I'm never going to find somebody. And I think this was, I kind of laugh now because it was like I went into it from this point of almost arrogance of, I'm doing this to let other people have the chance to get to know me. So, but it was, I think that was, it really did change the experience. I mean, I met a lot of really great guys. Some of them, are still my friends.
And you met them too as this new, not like it was the new Jen,
Yeah.
but you met them with this new energy.
Yeah.
And you're active and you're doing things and you're feeling better about yourself and you're starting to kind of eat up life. And so they're meeting that Jen.
Yeah.
Right? And you didn't have to feel bad about their saying, "Oh, what do you do?" And you're just sitting at your desk at work and you don't really have any hobbies, right?
Yeah.
Because really good energy attracts really good energy. It
Yeah.
just does.
Yeah.
And that's why I said it starts opening up doors and people start coming into your life.
Yeah.
Not just even if they're going to end up being a boyfriend or something,
Yeah.
but people that affect you. Your yoga teacher,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and again, it's kind of like the whole thing about starting to like take care of my teeth. It's like, just start. Don't.
That is the basis of everything, don't you think?
Yeah.
Just do the thing.
Just do the thing.
Just start. And it doesn't even matter if you fail, right? Of course, you don't start things planning to fail, but it doesn't matter because then you just rebound and you come back and you just do it better, right?
Yeah.
And if you never failed, you don't learn any lessons.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that I really had to learn. It's like, so it's like you can either avoid failure and you can avoid loss. And doing that, I did that. I did that
Yeah.
for over a decade, thinking that I was avoiding pain and avoiding being hurt. But
Or have people see the weak points about you, the
Yeah.
things that you had shame about.
Yeah.
You didn't want anyone to see that.
Yeah.
Like you could on the surface you could be talking and you're smart, you have a great job
Yeah.
and stuff, but if they dig deep, they're going to find out that they're not like my teeth. They're going to find out I'm not very interesting. They're going to think, and it's all the story that we tell ourselves, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I remember when you met your now husband.
yes,
Yes.
that's recent.
Yes, that was very exciting when I saw that you just got married. So
Yes.
congratulations on that. It's very
Yeah,
exciting.
well, us together isn't recent. The
No,
marriage
the
is-
marriages.
Yeah,
Especially because for one, I remember you said that you thought you would never date at all.
Yeah.
And you said there's no way I'm going to get married because you didn't think that there was anybody who would find you enough.
Yeah.
That you would be less than and nobody would find you enough to be interested and
Yeah.
want to marry you. But I remember when you met Larry.
yeah,
Because, we're just friends. But you started talking about him in a different way.
Yeah.
You really started smiling.
yeah,
And there was another shift in your attitude and how you were relating to other people in the office.
Yeah.
Right? And you were like, and I said, well, do you think this is going to be, no,
You-
he's not interested in getting married. I'm not,
Yeah.
we're just friends. And, we've already established our parameters
Yeah.
about what this is. But I knew, and I told you this later, I knew there was something different about him because you were different
yeah,
about how you were talking about your world and how you presented yourself to people, and you changed when you met him in a really good way. You just came alive again, like at another level.
yeah. Yeah, Larry. I do remember when he and I first met. I thought. I'm like, I don't think he's really looking for anything long term, and I'm not looking to convince anybody of anything. I'm like, but it'll be a fun 3 weeks.
Were you doing that because you were trying to protect yourself?
I think I think that was part of it.
Yeah.
But also, it's part of that. I think what I was saying before, it's like you can either avoid pain and it's still painful, or you can admit, it's like everything has an end to it, and either a heartbreaking one or an end because you never started, or you can't avoid it.
Yeah.
But again, you have to start. You at least have to move.
Yeah.
And so I think with Larry, I think part of it was, oh, well, it would be a fun few weeks, was kind of to hedge my bets a little bit. But also, I remember thinking, and I think I told you, it's like, but he's still someone that I feel like I need to know. So if it's only 3 weeks, who I will be at the other end of 3 weeks. I want to know who that person is. And so I don't,
And then it just kept going.
yeah, and it kept going.
It was another week, and then it was a couple months, and then I remember two things. One, when you showed me your new car, and you showed up in this bright red car.
It was my Mazda 3.
I just did not imagine that was what you were going to get, right?
Yeah.
And then it went from that
Yeah.
to what?
Yeah. So when I met Larry, like pretty early on, I think he actually rode his motorcycle to our first date, and that was something I'd always been interested in learning how to do. I had like a little Honda 50cc mini bike that I would zoom around on when I was like 15, 16. Never really ridden anything big, but it is kind of an overwhelming thing to start, to learn and to practice, because it's like, well, you sink money in to buy a motorcycle and you don't know how to ride it, So kind of in meeting him and us starting to date, he was really supportive of me learning and let me use his motorcycle to practice on. And so,
That's a huge show of trust.
yeah. And it's like this guy had only been dating for 6 months. Oh, here's the keys to my motorcycle while I'm working. Go ahead and take it out. And so, yeah, I ended up taking that motorcycle safety class, and had to take it twice. But yeah, I took it twice. I didn't take it once and quit.
Yeah.
So that was.
But no,
the
that's
thing.
huge.
Yeah.
So to go again, and I'm always going back to where my my baseline was of having you just sitting there and, not, just staying at work and not wanting to go home and going home and sitting on the couch with your cats. Now you were considering buying a motorcycle.
Yeah.
You were taking motorcycle classes. I mean, your world is expanding.
I ended up getting my endorsement. I bought a motorcycle. I started commuting into work with my motorcycle. Which
I remember I saw you. There was a woman on a motorcycle ahead of me. You were ahead of me. We were on the back, the back road just before we turned into the garage.
Uh-huh.
And I remember you turned in front of me. We came in, and then I realized, I think that's Jen.
Yeah, because I think you asked me upstairs.
It fried my brains that you were on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And I was just astonished by that. And I remember I went and I taught you. I said, was that you on that motorcycle? And you were like this. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was mine.
Yeah, that's my bike.
Yeah.
Like it was no big deal.
Yeah.
It was a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Like, I am so inspired by you. You're making me feel less than. And you're like, what are you talking about? It's no big deal. But to me, it was such a transition.
Yeah.
And it was actually only happening because I remember our job I left in 2015 to take a creative sabbatical.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I wasn't seeing you every day anymore. So I went from our baseline to you doing these huge leaps and actually having a really exciting life.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember when I talked to you, it was 2019, and I was talking to you about, and you were still with Larry, and I was talking to you about actually doing this interview with me.
Yeah.
And I had just, I'd already had a couple people that I talked to. And so when I was explaining to you what it was, and I was coming at it from, I found your story very inspirational, that you decided to change your mind and it changed your life. And I wanted to tell that story to people to inspire them, right? Well, then there was something else that we were talking about because one of the other interviews I did, I had taught you about what they felt that their best fail was, and the point that had really changed their life for them.
So, along with kind of my teeth and my appearance and like me being convinced that's why I couldn't move forward, I'd worked for the same employer. I think by the time we talked, I was no longer there, but I had left them after 24 years. So like basically my entire adult life. And the reason for that was when I went through college graduation, but was, I think, 5 credits short of my bachelor's degree. And by the time that was an official thing, I was already working for this company. And it was another one of those things in my head that I can't tell anyone this. If I tell anyone this here, I'm going to get fired.
Okay, I have to stop you there. I have to stop you there because I remember when you told me that on the phone, and I was like, Jen, you are a senior in your job.
Yeah.
You're so accomplished and you're well thought of. You've been working for the company for a million years. If they find out that you put that you had a bachelor's degree but that you were really 5 credits short and didn't have it, they were going to be like, we're firing her. She's not promotable. I was so amazed that was the story that you had in your head.
Yeah.
And I said, Jen, this is not something that you have to worry about at all. But even then, and this was just what? This is 2019. You were like, no.
Yeah.
You were still so afraid. And you're like, I can't talk about that.
Well, I mean, because my family all thought that they were at my college graduation, and it's like, how can you say, oh, that was just like a dress rehearsal?
So how come you didn't have the credits? Like, what happened?
So I think there was like 1 or 2 classes that at the time of graduation were incompletes that within like a year or so after graduation, just
and you were already, and you were in Pittsburgh. And
I had already, I went to school in Indiana. I already moved out here. It wasn't like online learning. What's that? That wasn't a thing. And so again, that became another story that I told myself of, yeah, okay, well, I'm here in this job and I'm earning a certain income. I have a certain career progression that if I try to go somewhere else and I'm honest about, whether or not I have.
I don't really have my bachelor's. Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm honest about it, I'm not going to have the same deal that I have here. So I have to stay here.
So you stayed there for 24 years because you were so afraid somebody was not going to hire you with your experience and your knowledge because you were 5 credits short of your bachelor's degree.
Yeah. And so it took, when I left, so I finally did, by the time you and I talked, I'd finally left that company. And I mean, I really had left without like a plan B at that point. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll take a 6-month sabbatical, but, I'm going to have to, but I, at that point, I was far enough into my journey that I'm like, I'm going to be honest this time. If they're going to be lumps, I'll take my lumps and I'll do it. I'll put the real me out there and I'll take whatever it is I get.
And did you get asked about it?
No.
Oh, that's a shocking.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not making fun of you.
Well, no. I know. And honestly, Larry at that point, like leading up to that, he didn't even know that I didn't have a degree. And I was embarrassed and really ashamed to tell him about it because, he's a person who incredibly smart and well-read. And I was afraid he would think that I was like lazy or stupid or something.
Well, what did he say when you told him?
I had him proofread my resume that I was or my resumes that I was sent. And so he saw the bullet point about education at the bottom where I just said, here's, undergrad study here these years. And he's like, what does this mean? I'm like, well, it means I don't actually have my bachelor's. And all he said was, we should probably think about doing something about that at some point when you're ready. That's all he said. And the funny thing was, is, it got to a point because at that point, I was in between jobs. I was going to, like, shoot, I have time. And, even though it was before all learning is online that we got to in 2020, it was like, well, let me contact and this was something that happened like within 30 minutes. I got an idea in my mind. Let me contact my alma mater and just see if there's a way that if I can get my transcript, if I can find out my credits, and like within 30 minutes, I had gotten in touch with an advisor. She's like, oh, you can re-enroll. You need like these classes. She went through my transcript. Okay, this applies. We'll give you the equivalent. She's like, okay, you need 3 classes. Our summer quarter starts in 2 weeks. And hey, we're offering these classes during the summer session. So it was like, I re-enrolled and went back to school. And I actually started back to school online to finish my degree the same day I started my new job.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
And it was like, so, and then 3 months later I finished. And
now you don't have to look over your shoulder anymore.
And you know what? Now that it's happened, I don't ever think about it again.
Yeah.
And it's like the number of sleepless nights and fear that
you thought somebody was going to find out.
That someone would think that I was a fraud.
Yeah.
That I was a liar. Because those were all the things that I told myself.
The stories we tell ourselves, yeah.
Yeah, so got that degree.
Can I tell you something too? I have come across quite a few people who have that same story.
Yeah.
They said they had a degree, but they were only like 1 to 3, couple credits short.
Yeah.
And they're working, they're in the industry, and some people get pulled into it. They started out and they got pulled into, somebody wanted them to work for them in a tech company, and then they got promoted, and then they went to another company, and it was just never an issue, right?
Yeah.
But it's the shame of the secrets that we have, and we build them up, and we create, it's like that Princess and the Pea thing. Sorry, there's a little fly there. It's like the Princess and the Pea, where, it starts becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and usually it's always about the baggage that we have, or the secret we have that's like shame or guilt.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like I look at it now, and with my degree and my teeth and my weight, and it's like I look at it now, and I do look back at that person who believes those things. I can look at her with compassion now. When I was in it, I couldn't. I'm like, how scared and ashamed and just freaking lonely. And, it's like the person who, there's a difference between being alive and thriving. And I was just alive.
Can you imagine if you had not just, whatever it was when you woke up the day where you decided you were going to go really talk to a dentist and really figure out what you're going to do with your teeth, and when you started yoga, like when you made those 2 decisions, because they really did change your life. They did. And they seem such like an easy thing.
Yeah.
But can you imagine if you hadn't done that? You hadn't done the thing. We talked about that, just starting and just doing the thing, right?
If I hadn't done that, I mean, not to be too maudlin, I don't know if I would still be here.
Really?
It was pretty dark. It was just not good.
Well, it is lonely when you're only by yourself because you're protecting yourself from pain from other people, or rejection, supposed rejection from other people.
Yeah.
So you don't try things, you don't do things because you don't want to put yourself out there.
It's hard for me to imagine that. I have in my, in my life, like lived with people, or even family members who, that just, who are kind of in the same mindset of, it's pain, it's suffering, it's shame. There's no point in trying to fix it. There's no point in trying to take one step forward, because 20 steps forward is the edge of a cliff.
There is some point where you think this will never change.
Yeah.
and then you start getting used to how you feel and you think that's what life is about.
Yeah.
And it's too hard to change.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have a support system.
Well, yeah.
I was going to tell you, the things that you have said to us about Larry.
Yeah.
He said the most kind things to you.
Yeah.
And he accepted you.
Yeah.
And talked to you like you should have been accepting and talking to yourself.
Yeah. And he really is still that person, it's like the kind of the warts and all, acceptance. Yeah. It's like there are still things, because I'm always going to be harder on myself than it's nothing like it used to be. But, even now I'll say something really self-deprecating and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, you're married to such a weirdo. And he's like, I'm not sorry.
Well, my dad told me, I remember when I was in my 20s, there will be somebody who will come into your life who will like you for all the things that you are.
Yeah.
And you do not need to change. It's all about how you feel about yourself and the energy you project. And if you're being true to yourself, that energy is going to attract somebody who says, I love this person. Warts and all, this is exactly the kind of person that I was looking for.
Yeah.
And but someone can say that to you, but you don't believe it.
Yeah.
It's like you're too tall, you're too short, you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're just like blah, 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 blah. And they're the loops, that we tell ourselves so that we can get through the day. And by saying that, it's just going to be me against the world because I have bad teeth, I'm overweight, I don't, have a life or whatever. It's our little, as Brene Brown says, that we armor up for the day and we go out and stuff. You were brave enough that you just decided one day that this was not the life that you were going to have.
No,
Yeah.
it was because it really wasn't a life.
Yeah.
It just, I remember when I was in the thick of it thinking, I'm just taking up space. I'm not doing anything.
And now look at you now. You're doing everything.
I was sitting here and I'm like, remembering, I wanted to tell you, just like probably in the past 2 weeks, I think was driving somewhere in my car, the music was on, and I had the sudden thought, like, God, I really like my life.
I love that.
And then I just had to kind of laugh. I'm like, who the hell are you? It's like, where did that come from? It's not a huge one, but I like it. I made it. I worked for it.
You know why you like your life? It's because you like you.
Yeah.
Don't you think that is a huge thing? When you finally come into your own, and even when everything's not perfect, it doesn't mean that you don't have little mini crises or fires going on. But when you really get a sense of who you are and you're at peace, because you know that you're trying, right? And you just feel good about who you are.
Yeah.
That's when life really like settles in and you have gratitude.
Yeah.
Because you're not so worried about, hiding the secrets, covering things up, or you're restless because you know that you want to break out and change, but you haven't done it yet. When change is trying to happen and knocking on your door, that's when you're angry and restless and you cry and you just can't settle.
Yeah.
And some people just say, well, and they accept that, right?
Yeah.
What was the thing that helped you the most to keep going forward?
Well, I think it was intentionally wanting to rewrite those stories about myself and like retell. And I think it goes back to what I said. It's like there are two ways to be hurt, or two ways to hurt yourself. It's one is to sit and do nothing, and the other is to like put some resistance up against it, fight against it, move forward, it's like you get to choose. Are you going to face this passively and just let it pull you under? Or are you going to exercise the choice in the matter that you have? Or, well, I mean, either one is a choice. Not choosing is a choice. And sometimes if you don't have the energy or the capacity, maybe that's the right choice for the time. Learn how to trust someone if you can't trust yourself.
Are you talking about if somebody's having a positive dialogue with you or is telling you things, like giving you love and saying the great things about you? trust that they are being honest and the things that they are
Yeah.
saying are who you are.
Because I think, there's a tendency, or was the tendency for me at a certain point, where I would have those interactions with other people, and if there was any kind of positive like feedback or interaction, I would be like, well, if they really knew.
And always assuming it's you.
Yeah.
Like always assuming what they say.
Yeah.
Because I remember a good friend of mine said too, Dana, why are you believing you like reacting and being hurt by the one thing that one person said?
Yeah.
It was about something that I had accomplished.
Yeah.
And all these other people are loving it and giving you, enthusiasm, support, and saying, way to go. But this one person said, oh yeah, I don't like that at all. And now you've decided that that's who you are and that person's right. When all of these, and it's because that is so much easier to believe.
Yeah.
It's because it reflects the self-doubt that you have inside.
Then on the other side, it's like this incredible display of ego, and not the hey, I'm awesome, but it's like this self-focus of that your existence and your misery is so influential to those around you that's what they're reacting to. No one really gave that much of a shit.
I know. Well, no, our hang-ups
Yeah.
are literally our hang-ups. And some
Yeah.
people don't even, the things that you think are so big and insurmountable that are holding you back, other people don't even notice them.
Yeah.
They are not on their, peripheral at all.
Yeah.
Right? That is the biggest takeaway, I think,
Yeah.
from this, is that, the stories that we tell ourselves to keep ourselves from hurt and to keep ourselves from really having to do some self, realization and dig deep.
Yeah.
The stories that we tell ourselves become so big, and they're bigger than anyone's perception. And those are the demons that
Yeah.
hold us back, keep us from living a life fully, or being curious and having discovery, which is
Yeah.
what life is all about, right?
Yeah.
And once you break out of that, once you stop like living in fear and trying to have a small little world so that you don't get hurt and you get to tell your loop without anybody,
Yeah.
challenging that. Once you break out of that, you're completely changed.
Yeah.
Like you'll never go back.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a given, right?
Yeah.
But isn't that wild that you will never go back to being that woman?
Yeah, I don't think I will.
Well, no, there's no reason to. And you're just so far beyond that.
There's more fight in me now, I think.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like because now it's been a practice
Yeah.
to like kind of ask myself, so what's the worst thing that can happen if I try this?
Don't you love that when
Yeah.
when you're no longer risk averse?
Yeah.
I truly believe that, because people will say, oh, Diane, you're always, I have a thought and then I start actionating, right? I start
Yeah.
doing it. And it's because I'm not risk averse anymore.
Yeah.
I have done things that really bombed.
Yeah.
Like I really crashed and burned, and sometimes publicly. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, how am I going to be around people and someone's not going to bring it up, or whatever, or, the next time I do something, someone's going to say, well, usually my siblings, because you know how we're so harsh with each other. Well, when you did that thing and how horrible that was, right? But because I get through them and I've had some successes, I am no longer risk averse.
Yeah.
Like doing my best fell, right?
Yeah.
But that is such a freeing feeling.
Yeah.
Is when you no longer have a fear of taking a risk, taking the leap, and just trying something new or trying to move into your next best self, right?
Because it's really kind of shifting the focus from product to process.
Yeah.
It's
or
like,
it's just also, it's like an enjoyment and excitement about, I have this passion about something and I want to try it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's just going back to doing the thing. Do you have anything like on the horizon, or is there anything new that you want to try? And
I kind of did dabble. I was curious about pottery, learning that and I took a few classes. I don't know if it's going to be something that's for me,
suck
but
at
I tried
pottery.
it. I tried it.
Yeah.
And I want to try it again
Yeah.
to see if it lands a little bit differently. That I think that has been something recently. One of the other things that I've kind of been toying with, and this is how my mind works now. I am not a strong swimmer. And so I've always been a little intimidated in the water. And so I've really been thinking, I'm like, I have done some research. If you know of anyone, let me know. To find like a swimming instructor so I can learn to become a stronger swimmer. Because again, that is a story that I have from the time that I was a little kid, that I'm not strong enough to swim.
Well, have you
not-
thought about putting that on social media and saying, I want to do this thing? And
Yeah.
is because you know what, there are a lot of people who can't swim, learn
Yeah.
to swim late, or
Yeah.
some people have trauma based about water and stuff, and that's
Yeah.
why they don't even want to go in the water. That's why
Yeah.
they don't swim. But some people are just not strong swimmers, or they just never had to, right?
Yeah.
I bet you if you put that on social media, you will get responses of, this is what I did. You're going to find out that there's people that are close to you. I
Yeah.
mean, in your area that can teach you how to swim.
Yeah.
Let social media solve that for you.
Yeah, I
That'd be-
think I think
Yeah.
I might do that. But yeah, that's kind of the next thing that I'm in the kind of learning phases of, because again, that story, like going on yoga retreats and kind of being reticent to go scuba diving or go swimming because I'm not a strong swimmer, and and I have gone snorkeling, even though I'm like, oh, I can use a little floaty, great.
You're going to be posting on Facebook next summer. You're going to be on a swim team.
Yeah, yeah,
You
there
have
you
your
go.
goggles on,
Yeah.
and you're up on the high dive. And you're like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm joking, but I'm not joking. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's just kind of how your journey's been.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want to have that story anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's going to be the
It's
the
not
next
your
thing
story anymore.
Yeah, I guess not.
It's not. It's not. I mean, you think about the people that are here, that my crew, the people out there, they only know you this way. They know your story now, but this is how they met you.
Yeah.
And I would bet that if we talk to them, their stories with you, you're talking about your motorcycle and your husband, you're doing stuff, that's who they know you to be.
Yeah.
They don't know you, the Jen that was sitting in the office and just staying there and afraid.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is who you are now, and this is going forward. Except for now, everybody knows your story.
Yeah.
but that's okay. but anyways, I'm so glad that you came today, because I know that you always just say no, but you have one of my favorite stories. I love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm very
Thank you.
inspired by you,
Oh, thank you.
and I think that other people will be as well.
It's hard to imagine, but I really hope so.
Yeah, no, it is. There's people that were in the same spot that you were in,
Yeah.
or probably halfway through their journey now, or just starting their journey, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think you're awesome. Thanks. I give you hugs.
Oh.
If you have a story that needs to be told, send us an email at contact@mybestfell.tv. If we think it's a good fit, we'll reach out. Today's episode of My Best Fell was created by cinematographer Aaron Castillo, editor Min Lee, sound Brian Binning, gaffer Billy Miller, makeup Marissa Loya, and catering by Sarah Bailey.